Good, everybody.
Hey, guys.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm going to call the meeting to order of the Yampa Valley Housing Authority on June 11th. First item on our agenda is our call to order, which we just did, and public comment. Do we have any public comment here? What? No, Noreen. All right. Then we will go to board member comment. Do we have any board member comment? Catherine.
I just want to say two things. I want to remind everyone, this is Pride Month, so hopefully everyone can attend Pride Festival at the courthouse on Saturday. And I also went to the same city council. I thought their presentation on the needs assessment, if people didn't have time to watch it, was really well done. It was a great presentation. And I thought one thing that was really notable in it is they just acknowledged the number of units that have been built in Steamboat since these are the last 10 years. And the vast majority of those were the housing authority. So it is something there just noting that, you know, Steamboat really is kind of ahead. In the last 10 years anyway, we outperformed the other mountain communities. So just well done, everyone, but we also recognize there's still a lot to do. But thank you, Dave and Steve. I thought it was a really good presentation.
We distributed the prioritization memo, which is the results of the priority analysis we did, putting our dots where the dots we wanted the dots. There were two major items. One was governance, which is hopefully covered. All of it is covered in the proposal that was given to us by Charney Keys. And I think Kathy's going to speak to that in a little bit. And second is I've combined building trust in the community with the mill levy strategy. I've talked to Lorraine. What we're thinking about doing is using the communications team as the vehicle to organize it with some headed folks. Hopefully Cole can join us as we go through that. And then I'll send out a follow-up note over the next couple of days.
I also wanted to add something, and I had a short discussion with Ed Hellick about this, but in terms of board members, the fact that we are down several from the maximum number of board members, just wanted to raise the question from this board, where you all stand or feel about filling any of these board positions prior to January of next year. When is our typical time? Well, actually in December, November, our typical time to interview candidates and whatnot, or if you feel it's important to do something before then. And I guess, I mean, just a couple comments regarding that. You know, if we did it before then, obviously we can get people, we want more board members in place prior to board effectiveness work, anything else that's going on. Also, you know, we also have the challenge with just scheduling and everything else of trying to develop or get on a schedule for interviews and whatnot prior to November, December. It's pretty tight to try to do something like that. And the other piece is that, you know, we can take and interview candidates who got some support the last time around and also open it up to new applicants. And so I just wanted to throw it out there to say, you know, we're about 6 months away from actually, if we want to, interviewing candidates for either open seats or seats that are going to come up at the end of this year. And obviously, if we put people in place now, it's for a very short period of time. If that seat is up again early next year. So I just want to throw it out there for people. It's a strong opinion one way or the other. I think we're kind of leaning towards just going with the regular schedule, only because it's very difficult to try to set up interviews and get applicants and advertise and do everything else much prior to, I hate to say it, but November, December. So I'm just throwing it out there for any comments.
Dan?
I think it makes sense potentially to interview applicants for the open positions, not for the positions that would become open. But with the caveat that, you know, as a new board member, there's a a bit of a steep learning curve, even for just being on a board, whether it's the YVHA or other boards. So I don't know if there's a way to open it up, but strictly to people who have previous board experience, people who, you know, as much as it's nice to get fresh, new perspective, I think that to bring new people on that would need to be brought up to speed at this point, when I feel like we're really starting to get momentum, might hamper that.
Any other comments?
Well, I mean, and the only comment I would have is, you know, I'm not sure that we're 100% onboarded with all the new people that have come on board. And that would add another 2 people that would have to be onboarded. So, I mean, it's a logistics issue. I'm not sure it's that critical.
I would say I have prior knowledge and prior history, but I find I had to work really hard with that, even with that, to get up to speed what was going on, and still I think there's some things that are going over my head.
I'm just curious, Steve, any chance that you could use the previous list of candidates as a
What was the question about?
previous list of candidates? Could you use that as a pool and then select from there?
Well, I'm not saying we can't, but I think there might be some pushback of holding it to that group of people when you could have other candidates who are as well qualified as they are out there as well. So that would be my concern. I think
Okay.
we would have a lot of support for that approach. I don't know how we feel.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Steve summarized it well, that potentially we could look at the applicants already, but I think there might be some hurdles to climb there and some pushback and perception of should probably open it up to a larger audience. So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, the 2 vacant seats, those still have like 1.5 years left on their term. So everyone's aware.
And Sarah, Michael Ann has joined us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mark.
Oh, Mark?
I don't think it's crucial to fill in, but if in the prior applicants, there were 1 or 2 people that had development or construction experience, I think it'd be worth considering that. Considering where it's trying to go with Brown Ranch or in the
Slade Creek.
Slate Creek.
Okay, well, you know, this is something that the commissioners and the council has to agree on.
So we just wanted to see if you guys had a strong opinion or feeling. If you're kind of in the middle of maybe it would be good, maybe not, then I don't think it's worth pursuing. But if this board felt strongly one way or another, then we wanted to hear your thoughts so we could carry that forward.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm hearing an overwhelming.
Yeah.
You're not hearing an overwhelming
Okay.
anything.
Okay, I think we'll leave it as is then, and if you guys feel strongly, then you could bring it up again, but we wanted to make sure we were at least opening the door.
And there will be 2 slots up that are due, Catherine's up, and then Lou has a 1 year, so there'll be at least 2.
Well, I have a separate board comment.
Okay.
It's more just an update that the South Out Housing Authority is up and running. We had our first meeting this week. There are 9 board members on that board, and it's just a lot of admin stuff right now, getting the EIN, getting everything filed, getting a PO box. We passed our sunshine resolution with where we'll post our meetings, and so passed the bylaws, elected officers. And so just letting you guys know, I know that we were meeting a lot with staff. Elliot and Emily and Lala and Jason have been super helpful when we were just an advisory board getting this started. And so, I'll keep you guys updated on what that authority is working on. Just a lot of admin stuff right now to try and dip our toes into the housing authority world, but excited.
Congratulations. That's
Thanks.
great. Now, do you guys have an ED?
We do not.
Just that's still to be.
Yes.
Science.
Perfect timing for what's going on out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're excited. I think there's a lot going on out there with the mobile home parks and just with code updates and the comp plans for both the town of Oak Creek and the town of Yampa. So a lot going on, and we're excited to have a diverse board from across unincorporated Route County, Yampa, and Oak Creek. And yeah, so I will keep you guys updated. Like I said, very similar to, I guess, what the RTA is going through with just like admin stuff. We're gonna have to put out, make a procurement policy, get a legal counsel. We're gonna have to do an RFP for a bank account, like all sorts of things. And so one step at a time.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to bring the board up to date on the Charney Keys proposal. We received the actual proposal on Tuesday, and it will be in your weekly packet that goes out tomorrow. Just two general comments. They are not able to do any sort of planning for the 2-day seminar until August 1st. So we will be looking to schedule, and we'll send out a doodle for the 2-day, probably sometime after the 15th, after our board meeting. So you'll have 3 days committed in August. The other thing is we have to put up a third of the $31,000, which is $11,000. And that is below our $25,000. So we will have to, when we pay for the whole thing, when we have our retreat, we'll bring back a amendment to the budget. And then Steve, I did talk to Tom, and we will be getting a book or a written plan as a result of all the meetings. So we will get the documentation, full documentation. John.
Maybe out of line here, but you mentioned the communication program. Are you gonna have a supplemental budget for that in time for the range to be doing things?
Not at this point. I want to get together if you have one because we're gonna need materials. We have materials,
Okay.
develop messaging, understand exactly, what the strategy is for going forward.
Is the 2-day meeting 2 full days?
Yes, and they're back to back.
That could be very problematic, finding back-to-back days for some of us in this room. So I don't know what options there are there, but that's a hard.
How long is a full day? Like with Slate Creek Steering Committee, we're doing like 4 hours on one day, 4 hours on the next day.
No, their proposal outlines an 8-hour day, so it would be 2 8-hour days.
I just don't know if like many of us will be able to find that 2 8-hour days in a row.
Well, there may be Thursday, Friday would be better than a Monday, Tuesday, obviously, for the elected officials.
I think what would really be better if they figure out a way to structure this for one day.
I'll discuss it with them, but you'll get the proposal tomorrow, so please read it. And it outlines there's not only just 2 days, then there's a couple months later, a follow-up day. So it's a total of 3 days over the next couple of months.
Did the 2 days have to be consecutive, the first 2 days?
They prefer it.
Yeah.
No, Kathy, I do agree. I think maybe it was like a Friday and a Friday or within a week or something, but 2 back days, full days is gonna be tough. To get this many people scheduled.
Well, and then they have to come up, so this would be an extra day that they have to come up also.
Gosh, yeah.
I think one of the keys for them also might be how important is it to have them back-to-back days in terms of the flow and making sure that you're present mentally around what's going on, or if we can split it a week, I'm willing to pay a little more to split it a week, maybe, if it doesn't change the effectiveness of the
All right,
process.
I know Tom is out of town this week, so I will talk to him Monday, but in the meantime, you'll be getting the actual contract. Yes, John.
When we discussed this a few meetings ago, we were concerned about how this was gonna be structured. Rather than having them lecture to us, it was more interactive. The board and
That's the intent.
that's the intent. Okay, just make sure.
Kathy, I wonder what the board in general feeling would be about having it over a weekend, or is that an option that they would be okay with?
We haven't discussed that, so I mean, I don't know how the rest of the board feels. I know, you know, those of you who have real jobs, have, you know, you're putting in 40 hours or more during the week, and to schedule a Saturday, Sunday or a Friday, Saturday might be really difficult. But I mean, it's something we can talk about and bring back.
Sure.
Because, I mean, right now, we're talking about August, so there's, you know,
Understand.
I can send an email out to the full board after I talk to Tom.
Yeah.
I just had a pretty visceral initial reaction to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking that.
Tell. That's the other side of the, you know, working full jobs coin, is that it might be very tough to get out of, you know, to have 2 days during the
Yes.
week. Or maybe like a Friday, Saturday, you know?
You know, I was thinking, that's a good suggestion, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
because maybe a Friday, Saturday, because I was thinking that same thing too, taking 2 full days off of work.
You know, one advantage of splitting it up in 2 days separate. First day, we may do a bunch of good stuff and find out we need to, maybe the second day, do something a little differently to achieve some of the goals. And have more constructive for the second one, so splitting it up is a possibility for advantage, I think.
Well, they have their own proven method. So I don't want to certainly tell the consultant how to consult. And Steve, being in the business, knows, you know, how important it is when he is engaged to say upfront, these are the deliverables and this is the expectation.
I just think, I hear what you're saying, but flexibility sometimes in working through a problem is real important, even for a consultant, but I could be wrong, Steve.
I think we need to see the process and what it looks like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll get it tomorrow. All right, any other board comment?
I just had a request on the agenda. I have a hard stop at 1:50, so if we could move agenda, if the board is willing to accommodate me, like to move agenda item 9 to after staff reports.
Does anybody have an objection? All right, we'll do that.
Thank you.
All right, consent agenda. I'm assuming everyone has read the consent agenda items. Are there any questions on items provided in the packet? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
That was Catherine. Thank you. I have a motion by Lou and a second by Catherine. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, staff reports. Elliot.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Some updates for you all. Just pull this up on the screen here, people online. Property management, thanks to everyone that came out a couple weeks ago for the Fish Creek cleanup day. That was a success. Our next community cleanup day is tomorrow, or I'm sorry, this coming Saturday, June 13th from 8 to 11 at Whitehaven. We'll kind of similar thing. We'll have a 30-yard dumpster helping the owners kind of pick up around their lots, kind of going through the park, assisting with any sort of trash pickup that we need to do. So anyway, if you've got a free hour or two, feel free to stop by Whitehaven this coming Saturday morning. We're still working through our community engagement day at Hillside Village, but that's looking like kind of late July or early August. You'll be getting kind of more updates from us in the coming month on that. From a Cottonwoods perspective, from the sales side, I actually have some better updates and numbers in my report. As of today, we've had 28 closings. We're on track to have 12 more closings by the end of June. We have at the current time, we have 27 unallocated units, which is about 31% of the overall inventory. But the real estate team is still getting applicants. We have 10 who have just received their application. We have 2 that are reviewing, that the team's reviewing what they've supplied and their supporting documentation. So still seeing a lot of positive interest in the product at Cottonwoods there. We've been kind of talking a little bit. I think this is kind of a further discussion, but I know there's been kind of comments and questions about what is our plan for all the unallocated units and, you know, how are we gonna work through getting those sold? There is a real estate meeting on Monday to kind of talk through some of this, but just kind of high level, some of the things that are on the table currently is disbursement of the remaining STR funds. Currently, you know, we're looking in the neighborhood of about $230,000 to $380,000 that we could apply to bring prices down and make those more affordable and also bring some of the AMIs down. Updated marketing strategy. So radio ads, newspaper ads, MLS listings, Zillow listings. And then just more communication from our social media, from our website, just to kind of reach more people that way. Additional open houses, kind of targeting these buyers with these unallocated units. And then some of the things that we're also kind of discussing as a team is the use of our commissions on this project to also buy down prices for the units. After that's exhausted, going back to the city and working with the city on potentially getting some more STR funding. And then also looking at some philanthropic options, possibly the community foundation to also find some money to help us get these unsold units sold. On the down payment assistance front, we have 10 Prop 123 down payment assistant active loans. And we have 5 countywide down payment assistance active loans. So I'll stop there and just kind of open it up to the board. I think wanted to have a little discussion around this and some of the strategies that we're talking about with these units. So Catherine.
Thank you very much, Elliot. I appreciate it. Thank you to the real estate team for your hard work on this. I was wondering, I didn't see a real estate team's minutes in the packet, so I don't know if that was forthcoming or if I missed it in frequent correspondence. But my question is the real estate team then going to be bringing back to the board a proposal, something along the lines of, is the board's preference to, you know, lower the AMI rates, to just lower the rate, you know, lower the sales price? Because I do think that is a board policy decision that needs to be made prior to any adjustments to prices. Just because, you know, this is different than a free market development where you'd be like, okay, let's just lower the price, you know, the sales price a little bit, because we have, you know, taxpayer dollars in this. So I think the fairness aspect is very important. If you sell one unit at 140% at a certain price, you need to sell an equivalent unit at the same price. Because if you lower it for one, you need to lower it for everyone, in my opinion. So I guess as the real estate team, is a plan to like bring back a proposal to the board in like July or something, or what's the game plan on it?
I mean, yes, that's my understanding, is to essentially discuss this Monday, bring those options to the board, get input on that, and then implement some of those strategies.
All of these options would require us to modify the deed restriction?
No, none of the ones that I discussed there. Now, I did put a couple of things in my update as far as allowing local businesses to purchase units, and also potentially opening this up to location neutral people who live in Steamboat or Routt County but don't work for an employer. Both of those would require modification to the deed restriction.
Discussion.
And discussion at the board level.
Sorry, go ahead, Catherine.
My recollection is we have like hundreds of people at that 100%, 120, you know, and that lower AMIs that, you know, didn't win the lottery. So I would think if we have that large of a need, just first blush thought, the opportunity to partner with the city, who once again has really helped to make this a community-wide success, to, you know, get money so we can lower the AMI's price. But there's a lot of options. This needs to be a board discussion.
I mean, I'm just curious, Elliot, what would you say the average cost to reduce the prices so that 120% people could buy 140% unit? Just a guess, you know.
20,000, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, it doesn't seem like that's a lot of money, so.
It's a bit more than that.
What was
I
that?
don't need to get in, we don't need to like
Yeah.
dig into details of this. I would just ask when we do discuss it to kind of have these questions, like to have all of these questions lined out for us, or these answers, excuse me, lined out for us. And then just the equity piece of those residents who have already bought at the 140% AMI, if the other units are lower, I'm just thinking of the equity piece for the people who did qualify, like are theirs going to be lowered now if the other units are lowered? I don't need that question answered now, but the equity piece of it will be a big flag for me when the conversation does happen.
I wanted to say, my belief is coming back to this is my own personal belief. Coming back to the city for additional SDR funds is the last resort. We should do all of these other things to the best of our ability. You know, we don't understand. We knew that going in. We didn't understand exactly how this is going to work out. And I think we need to ensure that we do every one of these other things that are possible to see what we can do before we come back and take what may seem like an easy way out. But it shouldn't be. In my
Agreed.
When do the carrying costs start to affect balance sheets for the unsold units? I mean, have you budgeted like 3 or 4 months to sell?
It was 6 months, and some of the pro formas is what our partners were kind of modeling when they were looking at this.
6 months from CO.
And we believe approximately 75% sales will pay off the debt. And so our first target is to get those 75%. And if we're at, what did we say? We have 31% unallocated units. We're not far off. We're doing good.
So there really isn't an urgency to solve it.
There's an urgency to get that debt down. And we believe that August was the target date that we've told our partners. We believe we can hit that closed 75%.
And we were looking at like mid to late August to kind of hit that 75% number.
And if you could just please share the minutes if you hadn't already.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll get them. They haven't met since the last board meeting.
Okay.
Oh, that's why you don't have any.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Sarah.
They meet Monday, Catherine.
Okay.
Mark.
I don't think I've seen any ads in the paper or heard any ads on the radio. I mean, is there a reason that we're not actively doing some advertising?
We're gonna be talking about that Monday, Mark.
Okay, and I guess I would say that regarding that particular potential solution, don't wait till July to come back.
No, we're
with
not.
approval. Just do it.
Wait, to
Just
do
do it.
approval?
No, just go ahead and run the ads.
Oh, yeah. No. We intend to market.
Okay,
We have a marketing budget.
okay.
And Michael Ann, did you have something? Okay.
Sorry, it always takes so long to find the mute button. I was just gonna say that Sarah, if we could double check, I do believe there might be a set of meeting minutes missing because we have had a real estate team meeting where we discussed the hierarchy of options, and that was not in the board packet. So I appreciate the flag on that. Secondly, there's definitely a marketing push that can continue happening, but I think where we're at now, and this is just planting the seeds, is that we are at a place where the demand for the 130 and 140% units for this product at this time in the market has just not manifested. And so we need to decide how we're going to pivot sooner or later. And that's where I think Elliot has said a couple of things today in terms of options. Is it, do we open it up to a different buyer pool via employers or remote workers that live here full time, using real estate commissions, other sources of funds in the pro forma? That's kind of where we wanted to just get a quick temperature check as to what would be acceptable in a recommendation that we could bring back to everyone. No, like, and I'm just asking that you all trust us that marketing is not the problem as to why we're not selling the 130 and 140 units.
Thanks, Michael. And just to comment to Steve, just to follow up. I don't think the SDR is what I would call the easy option. What I was really referring to is what the community need is. And so my thoughts on it were that if we have a large community need, we need to find a way to to invest in it. And I don't, whether that's from our current pro forma or real estate fees or partner with the city, just some way to, if we have people, in my opinion, that are working here in Steamboat at the lower AMIs that need units, I'd like to try to find a way to get them to be able to buy it.
I don't disagree with you. When I say it's easy, I don't want us to think that we just fall back onto that option as the mechanism to handle this. We need to do all this other stuff to the best of our ability. I would say, Michael Ann, I hear what you're saying, that marketing is not the issue, but I'd really like to see the research on that tells me marketing is not the issue, because there's so many creative, innovative ways to market today. And I haven't seen anything that suggests that we have exhausted the marketing toolkit. So
I'd also consider opening this up to full-time residents that happen to work for companies that are out of town. I think that's as important a point as anything. That Steamboat is their home. And I bring it up because I was contacted by somebody that's in that circumstance.
But I think that to counter that, I think that there are a lot of people who are living and working for a local business here who don't have housing.
Oh.
And that to me is a priority.
I can't agree more, but if we've got 10 units and we can't sell them, and we've gone through all the rest of these steps,
But could we
then
sell
I would think that selling one to somebody that's a
remote work?
full-time local, I mean, not that has been here for 2 months, but they've been here for 5 or 6, 7 years, that's completely justified.
I would say, just playing devil's advocate, that would send a very contrary message to what the housing authority is always marketed. And what the STR funds market is for local and workforce housing. And I think you guys would be stepping right into a big deal.
I couldn't agree more. I think that there are, if we can find a way to sell them to people who live and work for a local business here, we know that the need is there at a lower AMI. We know that our wages are low compared to urban areas. And that's not our local business's fault, right? I come from the chamber, local businesses are paying the best that they can. It's expensive to do business here. It's expensive to get product here. It's expensive to lease a space here, right? We know these things. And so local businesses are paying the highest wages that they can for the most part. And their employees still can't afford to buy a home here and live here. That I think we have to focus on those people and the local businesses who are hiring those people and who rely on those people to be able to keep homes here.
No, I agree 100%. And Dave, you're absolutely right. Our mission is to support the community, but also the local economy. And Mark, I wish that we could have enough housing for the demographic you're talking about. But when I see the people who are making 100% AMI and 120% AMI that are working so hard to, oh, sorry about this, to hope to stay in our community, I think if there's a way we can move this down to hit those hundreds of people who didn't win the lottery. Because I've even bumped into a couple of people that are like, oh, I didn't win the lottery. You know, it's just heartbreaking. And give those guys a chance first. If we can find a way to fund it, I think would be preferable. And hopefully we can. We're a creative group and
I think
fingers
more
crossed.
aligned with the housing authority's
Our
vision
vision.
and mission.
Yeah.
Possibility of doing a rent to own product for the people at a lower AMI?
That's been brought up and, that would also require a, change to the deed restriction.
And the finances of the project.
Finances.
I agree with that sentiment. I think that we need to serve people who are working for local businesses. I think what I would want to see is get a better understanding of what the financial implications of lowering that AMI requirement would be for the housing authority. And as long as those implications don't mean that it would hamper our ability to continue to build, affordable housing, then I would be in favor of that. But to Mark's point, I think that if that were to be the case, maybe that would be one of the next audiences of people we could look at. And I was wondering if there is a possibility of having, like, let's say you live in town, you maybe don't work for a local business, but you have lived in town for X amount of time, or maybe you have kids locally or some other sort of local qualifier like that. Because I do think that that's a pretty large, portion of our populace.
And the other point too is take a look at the city's needs assessment. During the presentation, the consultants did state that it's difficult to actually ascertain the metric for the 140% AMI and plus, but they did have a very large number for the need. Steve, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the 80 to like 120 was like the largest of the keep up. So take a look at that too. But as I said, thank you, real estate team. Look forward to your recommendations.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and I just also want to highlight, I think there's a lot of success here with this product, and we should all be kind of very proud of where we're at right now. I mean, we just received the TCO at the end of March, so we're making, I think, some good headway on this.
Elliot, do you have the number of people who bought in at a higher price? If you do lower the price, who bought in those units?
Yes, we have that in. I don't have that right now, but.
John, they paid what we asked for them.
Right.
So they didn't pay higher.
Right.
There's a whole formula for how we priced.
Okay, few other updates. So the executive director search is moving forward. We received 3 proposals last week by our deadline. The executive director search committee met on Friday to review those proposals. We're moving forward with 2 interviews tomorrow with 2 of the 3 firms. The third firm, still working on getting some references and some background information on them. So we're tracking kind of per our schedule, anticipating getting one of these firms under contract by the end of this month or first part of July. So more updates on that as we move forward. Hillside Village, grant updates. So Hillside Village, we'll be talking about this in the board meeting a little bit later, but we have submitted a grant request to the Colorado Division of Housing for a 4% and pre-state award for $1.2 million to support the rehab project at Hillside Village. Very competitive grant program. Essentially about 19 million is available, and so far over $100 million have been requested. So we'll see how we do with that. We should find out kind of later part of July on whether we're gonna get an award there. We've also submitted a letter of intent to CHFA, letting them know that we're gonna be applying for a 4% tax credit deal in August. And again, that's a part of our Hillside Village presentation. Our down payment assistance, we received over $500,000 last year for that. As I just kind of went over some of the loans that we have working through that program. The real estate team has closed 4 of those Prop 123 down payment assistant loans in May, and looks like 6 more in progress now. And then our grant team has closed out our 2025 grant from the Colorado and Energy Office with our Charge Ahead program. So this provided for a EV charger at Cottonwoods. And so we've gotten that one kind of wrapped up and just waiting for the project to sell out and be getting, I'm sorry, we're in the process of getting reimbursed for that. From a communication standpoint, we're picking up some additional followers on Instagram as well as Facebook. I know Lorraine's been doing a good job kind of driving user engagement. I don't know how many of you are following us in the YVHA social media, but you know, pretty consistent postings, some pretty engaging content. So she's doing a great job with that. Also, we have some updates going on with our website. We have a navigation tool that's very close to being rolled out there. We're also going to be adding the deed restriction program that we're working with the city on to our website in the coming weeks. And also looking at the possibility of adding a blog to our website. I know Lorraine's been working with John on some content for that. And then finally, Lorraine's been kind of meeting pretty regularly with various community partners and having one-on-one meetings with them, and organizations such as First Impressions, the Community Foundation, Steamboat for All, and the Routt County PIO. So continuing just that engagement and getting out there and talking to other stakeholders in the community. For U.S. Forest Service Hilltop, we got our lease package submitted to them on the 28th of May. And the red line lease package basically kind of takes into account some of our concerns and some of the issues that were brought up about the financeability of that project. So it appears that there's been some signals that they recognize that the land lease is problematic and that they'll be working through some potential changes and some adopting some new administrative regulations to that. Anticipate hearing more on that by the end of September. And if everything continues to move forward, potentially getting that lease executed around the first part of October. Our Slate Creek neighborhood, we'll also be talking about that here later in the meeting, but we have 2 meetings next week on the 16th and 17th. There's a supplemental kind of presentation that I sent out on that yesterday afternoon. So we'll be talking through some of those points and hoping to get your feedback and direction on how we're moving forward with Slate Creek neighborhood. And then Hillside Village Rehab, this again will be a topic to discuss in a presentation a little bit later. But some redundant information there from what I said earlier about the grants and our LIHTC LOI. But we're making good progress. We had a good call this week with the architect and the general contractor, kind of refining the scope a little bit. Still on track to get pricing back around the first part of July for that project, which will give us a couple weeks to work through the scope, some value engineering, in hopes of kind of getting that a little bit more dialed in before we submit to CHFA on August 3rd for that LIHTC application. So those are my updates. Yep, Dan?
I had a question. What's the status of the board community engagement team? I know it says on the back packet here that the next meeting is TBD. Is that I would love to be a part of that.
The community engagement team was actually a political action team.
Okay.
And I don't think we've met for 6 months now.
Is that the ad hoc?
Yeah, no, not that, yeah, what, I can't remember what.
Yeah, yeah,
called.
okay. Yeah, that's been dormant for a while. It basically, I think, paired up board members with various kind of city and county members and just kind of some additional outreach over and beyond and above kind of what you normally do.
It was pretty much, I talked to Steve Montine on the golf course the other day, and here's what we talked about.
Gotcha.
That was the kind of stuff.
Well, it seems to me like internal board polls have identified rebuilding community trust as a super high priority.
Absolutely.
Seems to me like maybe we should get that going again. Even if there's not a specific topic to be engaging about.
I mean, that was the idea of resurrecting the communication team, which you don't see it on there at all.
Right, well, yeah, I'm kind of conflating the two, really, yeah.
So communication would be, like you said, part of that.
Yeah, I think that's the best vehicle. We've got Lorraine, she leads that team,
Ambassadors.
and we need some strategy.
Right.
All right, any other questions of Elliot?
We're having a little more discussion on Hillside later.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yep.
All right. For Paul's request, we're gonna move the long-term revenue discussion and Paul.
Yeah, thanks again for accommodating me. Update you on what the finance team committee discussed. Kind of came to a focused solution that we'd like to pursue. Get feedback from this board on some key questions that we have. But know that the finance team will be working through this, given or with the exception of the discussion today saying stop and go back to the drawing board. So we took what we discussed last month and that as a team. I will say that the finance committee is comprised of Kathy and myself and Sandy and staff, Emily and Elliot as well. I would like to see more board participation on that, especially as we go through these funding options and dial in what we truly need over the next few years. It's not just looking at financial statements. So if you do have interest in that, it would be nice to put another person on that for sure. Now that I get that plug out of the way, what we discussed and went through in detail with Sandy as far as our cost needs going forward after a potential mill levy exhaustion after a couple of years is that we would go forward with a hybrid option of reducing the mill levy from 1 mil to half a mil, put it back on the ballot in 27. And I'll get to the reasons why for that. And pair that with a short-term rental tax request from the city of one of two ways. First, the mill levy, reducing from a mil to a half mil and extending the time or the sunset from 10 years to 20 years. The reasoning behind that is that obviously our housing projects take 3 to 5 years in the pipeline, just, pre-development, getting partners, RFPs, all the way through the construction. 10 years seems a little short-sighted as we are now running up against it. 10 years passed pretty quick. So the request for 20 years that's the reasoning behind that. Also gives us an option for possible bonding. Underwriters of municipal bonds usually don't take kindly to short revenue flows. 10 years is kind of the max for that. So if you're going to bond it, you're going to bond that right at the beginning. 20 years gives us a little bit of runway to reasonably look at some bonding issuances if that is needed for any of our upcoming developments between 1 to 7 years out. Aiming for 2027 allows us the ability to use the language without raising taxes on our ballot measure, which is very important, especially when it's in all caps. That first line is very important from a political standpoint, from a voting standpoint. We can't say with, by reducing taxes, which sucks, but without raising taxes is pretty important, because if we have to go to 28, it will say by increasing taxes, but the language will show that we are increasing taxes, even though the mill levy fell off the previous year and we're coming back with a smaller request. This also opens up the opportunity for other entities in town that are going to be taking a run at mill levies, for the voters and the taxpayers to understand that by us making room for that, that can accommodate some other much needed services in town, and the voters can determine whether or not that's a good trade-off or not, but at least presents that option on the ballot. Short-term rental taxes we discussed last month does come with a bevy of hurdles. One is just the request of the fund. If it matches up with the fund, it obviously aligns with our mission of what we do here and what that SDR funds are being raised for. But the ability for the city to approve an annual appropriation to that is limited by Tabor. They can only do it annually, so you are at the whims of sales tax collected, annual appropriations, budget needs, composition of both the Housing Authority Board and the City Council, and all those things that are just not unknowable going forward due to Tabor. To get around Tabor, that means a ballot measure from the city to put to the taxpayers to have a multi-year obligation from that fund to the Housing Authority directly, and the voters need to approve that. Still working through, again, this early stages here, what that all looks like, if it's even feasible. Staff has yet to meet with city staff and really go over any logistics about that, of what that looks like, ballot measure language, anything like that. So again, this is very early stage, but this is the option we would like to pursue, because I believe it gives us a lot of strong talking points in how we fund our operations going forward, what those operations can accomplish, and how they align with the current tax fund at the city. So the next page is the discussion points. I'd like to get through these quickly because we are a little bit behind time, and some really good agenda topics coming up. Given the increased valuation assessments and the available SDR funding, lessening the mill levy ask, obviously there's some talking points there of why it's good. Want to make sure everyone's in line with that and understands that and feels that that's a good message to take. What evidence do we have that a half mil would be more digestible than a 1 mil? Other than the obvious that we are not raising taxes and in fact reducing our tax burden on the assessments is the easy one. But what are we thinking about there? What is our value add? The finance team will be coming up with that, of what that ROI, for lack of a better term, is as far as pipeline, potential projects out there. What, if anything, Slate Creek will yield within this mill levy life, or the ask the city for the STR funds. What can we add to the development of current projects, and what Slate Creek would ultimately start and look like over time? What would the city of Steamboat Springs get out of YVHA is obviously the big question that we're asking ourselves before the city can ask us. If they're allocating $1 million to $1.5 million to us a year to supplement $1 million in mill levy to reach our operating costs and needs for development, what exactly are they getting out of that? We can point to the past and say 401 units were put up in the last 10 years. Obviously, there's room and development capacity to match that pretty quickly. But what other things could there be? So from that, we're just kind of looking for some direction, thumbs up on going forward with this hybrid theory, working with city staff and city council to find the feasibility of it, and then also begin with our own internal discussions about putting a half mil levy on for the 2027 election.
Thank you very much. Good presentation. Sorry I missed the last meeting. Actually, I was doing logic and accuracy testing for the primary election. But I think, yeah, good presentation and great ideas. just some first blush thoughts that I have on it is I think the most important question that we need to start discussing. And I think this really probably is a combination of the communications team and finance team and really anyone else who wants to be involved is how much money do we need to fulfill our mission? So the question that we're gonna be talking to the voters on, whether we're talking to elected officials or to the voter, is here's how much money we're asking for you to invest in the housing authority, and this is what you're gonna get out of it. So I think that's your number value added question, number 3. But I kind of think that question is a critical one that's gonna lead to whether we want to go for a half mil or a 0.75 mil or a 1 mil. Is this how much do we need and what's the investment? Because I know we don't have time for the big community outreach we did in 2017, but that is in effect what we want with the voters. We said, if you give us, at that time, it was 600, 700,000 a year, whatever, we will give you 100, well, whatever number, or 400 units over the next 10 years. That was what we said to the community.
And we did that.
And we did that. I think actually the only thing we didn't fulfill our commitment on was seasonal, and that's because the free market took that over. So I think we need to come up with that, and I think that will determine whether we want to look at what mill levy we want to look at. And I also do think once we get that sort of moving, I think we also should look at, if we're gonna look at the SDR option, talk to the city and see if we want to do a double ballot measure. If the city would be willing, of course, like ask the voters, would you reduce the property tax to whatever mill and maybe put a certain percentage of the 9 to the housing authority? I don't know. But I think the big question is, how much money do we need and what's the community gonna get out of it?
Go ahead.
Just to follow up on what Catherine said. Way back in the dark era of Brown Ranch, we did go to the ballot. We had 75% of SDR funds were gonna go to the authority. We're gonna go to Slate Creek now. Obviously, this is a different project. I don't think it is going to be anything of that magnitude. But that is, I think, an avenue in terms of both value added, because we're talking about Slate Creek and development of 200, 500 units. And that allows us to, provide value in terms of a percentage of the STR funds. And I don't know what that number is. Because that makes financing somewhat easier for us.
And as I said, that's exactly what you just said is exactly why we need to bring in our communications person, Lorraine, because we need to look at it and how we're not get too wonky. I mean, this is the new housing authority, new leadership, whatever, that we're looking at more, smaller units, more direct. You give us, and I think, Cole, you're actually asking for more money because you're asking for 900 plus 1.5. So, but whatever amount of money we're saying, we're asking community to invest in the housing authority. This is an amazing thing you're gonna get. I think 20 years is gonna be tough, Cole, but that was just the first plus thought.
Feedback?
One of
I
the
think-
things, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think the bill levy to me is the most, I don't know if flexible is the right word here, but we could go back for 1 mil, we could go back for half a mil, we could go back for 0.75. And I think that number is going to be determined on the other factors. 1, what's the value? 2, can we get short-term rental tax? It could be a non-starter with the city, right? It could be like, we're not interested in this, which then I think leads us to, okay, then do we go back for the 1 mil? If the city's like, sure, we're open to this, then we have the flexibility with the mill levy. So I'm not too concerned about the mill question right now. Like, what evidence do we have that half mil? Like, I think that's kind of the last thing. It's the other things. What's the value? Is the STR tax an option? If not, then we look at the mill, I also think, as this is just a general point for this group, is as we think about what 2027 is going to look like for us as individuals and on this board, whatever we direct the finance committee to go after or to have these conversations, like, what are you gonna invest in this? Like, what are you gonna personally support? Because like, this is not something that staff is gonna carry. This is something the board is gonna carry. This is gonna be hard work to pass, and I don't want this group to not understand that. If you haven't tried to go to the ballot before.
You took many of the words right out of my mouth, so I don't have to say it again, but we have a working payroll budget and a working budget, operation budget right here over $1.9 million. In order to meet those needs and plus all our other needs that we need to do, we need both these. And my concern is if one of these don't come through, you're walking around with hopping around one leg and it's gonna cobble us. So we need some commitments from both community and the city council. And I'm not saying they're unreliable, but we have a question, can we count on both of those? Because it looks like based on our payroll and our budget and everything, we need both of those at 0.5%.
Yeah, so let me reiterate. So this is what we're now focused on tracking down to find the feasibility of, because what you just described was our discussion last month.
Okay.
And so we are now seeking those answers. This is the update saying, this is what it looks like that we're going to seek. Give us some feedback on, is this the right avenue? Do you want to see something else? Good feedback on, cart before the horse, STR before mill, stuff like that. So all those questions is what we discussed last month and we're tracking down now.
And I want to play the devil's advocate a little bit here. I don't necessarily agree with you that by reducing the mill levy, that's a positive in the community. In fact, I could argue if we were to do that today, people would say, oh, you want to reduce the mill levy for the housing authority. Well, I don't want to give them anything. So we'll reduce it to 0 and let city council figure out how to fund the housing authority. I think reducing it in today's environment and the feeling in the community would not be a positive.
Kind of like retreating.
And,
Like retreating. We were retreating.
Well, I just don't think it signals the right it doesn't give the community the right signal. I think I would look at that and say, well, we don't want to pay anything then. And I get back to this STR piece of it. And again, going to the community, even if council wanted to and suggest something longer term in today's environment, I don't think is going to work either. So how I feel about using SDR funds is a little different question here, but I'm back to the fact that what we need to do right now and until next spring, which is really when you need to finalize ballot language if you're going to have it, and everything else, is get moving on this ED replacement, which we're doing, get moving on board effectiveness and on governance improvement and everything else, which we're starting to do. But we also need to understand what is the role of the housing authority? Because I could argue right now that the funnel is relatively empty. If Hilltop doesn't happen, right? We don't know if it's going to happen or not, but you staffed up for Brown Ranch. That's not going to happen the way it was structured originally. You staffed up for property management. That's not going to happen. So we look at the future and we say, what is the role of the housing authority? And what are the staffing needs of the housing authority? Do we really need, based on this, more money for the housing authority when it looks like we're scaling back? And what is going to be the role of the housing authority in Slate Creek? Because that is a really big question here. And are we going to move forward with Slate Creek? You looked at the constraint analysis. So we have to look at that now and say, okay, what are we going to really do there? But from my standpoint, I don't even think council would definitely want all the answers we've asked for here of what is the P&L of the housing authority and what are the assumptions in there? Because right now I have zero clarity on what the right staffing level is of the housing authority. And I think we don't have clarity around what is the role going to be moving forward of the housing authority, specifically around Slate Creek, or even around Stockbridge, which we haven't even talked about. Is there a role for the housing authority in that? But we got to answer those questions and really get down to what is a lean and mean machine here for the housing authority. And I don't think we're there right now, because I look at this and I'm thinking we're gonna spend more money on operations, not less.
I mean, it is projected that, operational costs will increase
And
at.
I'm concerned,
Inflation level.
Well, okay.
And the role that the housing authority has in Slate Creek is that we are the property owner and that we will be partnering with the developer on that. So.
I understand that if we move forward
Yeah.
on that, okay?
Correct.
And so none of these questions have been answered yet. And I think we're a little premature in talking about, well, the option we want is $500,000 and the rest from the SDR. So I just think we're premature on this. I don't think we have enough information or enough facts to say, we can confidently project. Unless you tell me the assumptions, and those assumptions are really high probability assumptions. And right now, I don't know how high probability the assumptions are around Hilltop, Yampa Valley, or on Slate Creek, and on some other things, whatever else we're doing, that say we need to maintain the staff size that we currently have and increase the amount of funds that the housing authority needs to operate. I just don't feel that we have that information yet.
It's a good point, and I you know as much as I do about Slate Creek, but we are this revenue sourcing is with the understanding that we are the property owner of that whole piece of land, and that development will occur in some fashion. We are not operating from an assumption that nothing will happen out there, and therefore we need to reduce the housing.
Understood.
That's just a very generalistic.
Understood, but
assumption.
we will have some much better quantification on that before the end of this year.
Agreed.
Before,
Mark, and then over to.
no, go for it.
I think that we should stay with the 1 mil and answer all Steve's questions, which all these questions been raised, so get an answer to them. And then sell that, because that's gonna be an improvement. In theory, the future housing authority is gonna be an improvement over the prior housing authority. And I think the public hopefully will see that, and then sell that, and sell the success of the Cottonwoods. The Cottonwoods is I think being well accepted, and the occupants are really happy. I was treated by one of the nurses that bought a unit there on Saturday evening and Sunday after I had the pleasure of staying in the hospital. And she came up and talked to me about being one of the first buyers and how elated she is, and how the rest of the people there are elated. So I mean, that we have something to really market and sell. And so selling that in conjunction with answering these questions, and in conjunction with, if we're pulling forward on these other projects, kids, we aren't getting less work, we're getting more work. And we'll need the staff to manage that. So fortunately, we don't have to make this decision today, but I think we need to stay on the 1 mil and just sell the success of the housing authority.
And Helica, did you want to?
What I was gonna say, and I think at the end, Mark kind of talked about, we're not getting less work, we're getting more work, is we have a housing needs assessment that was completed, or the housing demand study that was completed just last year. It shows not only is there a keep up need, there's a catch up need, and it's vast, and we have not closed that gap. There are people living and working here paying 50-60% of their income on housing. We have a need here, and it is our responsibility as a housing authority. It's our responsibility as elected officials to say, we need to invest in this because that need is there. And there is more work to be done, to Mark's point. The work is not shrinking. The work is not waning. And by investing in the housing authority, we are going to continue to identify those opportunities, to identify those projects, to invest in those projects, to find partners for those projects. That's the story that needs to be told along with the success story. So I disagree that you need to say, oh, well, we have XYZ projects in the pipeline. Yes, we have Slate Creek. Yes, we have Hilltop. Like, yes, there are some things, but that's not the point of investing in the housing authority. The point is look at where we are. What type of community do we want to be in the future? Do we want to be in the future? Yeah, and how do we, and investing in the housing authority is the best way to get there.
Well said. And actually, Steve, it would be great if we had, something in the pipeline right now. I agree. But when we passed mill levy in 2017, we had zero.
Zero in the pipeline, zero.
But I think you're right. I think that's what is that value added, is we need to say, what's the community, is say, dear community, like Mark said, you invest 1 mil of your property tax, and this is what you're gonna get over the next X number of years. And I think one of the key points, that your consultants made in the needs assessment was one of the big reasons for, Steamboat outperforming other mountain communities, which we don't say every day, is because the partnership of the housing authority and the city. And the city, is doing great things with purchasing the Campbell property, but the city has so many responsibilities. But even just look what the housing authority is doing now. Elliot mentioned last week that he's part of the wildfire response team. Something like that. If, all of a sudden, touch wood, we have a fire, people are displaced, the housing authority is there to help find relocation. I mean, we've grown into more than just managing a couple properties and building. Now, that's not to say, I've got confidence that our development team is currently looking at other development opportunities infill. Brown Ranch is a huge asset, but Slate Creek is only a piece of the assets we're bringing to the community. So I think what I recommend, and Lou and Kathy and Nicole as the leaders on this, we need to get our focus on that number 4, what's the value added? What are we going to deliver to the community? What are we committing that we will get done? And then the next question is, how much investment do we need to accomplish that? Whether that's current staff, more staff, less staff.
That is fine. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. Financial stewardship, very important in this community.
Yes.
It's really important for us with our budgets and our expenses at the city to show good stewardship. And let's be honest, okay? When we look at Cottonwoods and some of the overruns and stuff, some people will argue, where was the stewardship there of the funds? I'm just suggesting that we need to have our act really together around that value add piece there, to suggest if we need 1.4 million or 2.3 million or whatever it is, this is how it's going to be utilized to ensure that we do maximize that value add. That's my only point here, is that, and I don't have a clarity in my own mind around that. That's all.
I'd like to hear from some people who haven't weighed in, because we do have a lot to finish on other items. This is the introduction of a concept. This is exactly what Cole and I want to hear, and the rest of the board.
I'll just be quick. I think this is helpful. I'll reiterate. I think everyone's feedback is really helpful. There's this golden circle theory, which maybe some of you know, go from why to what, right? You go why, how, what. Like we know why we do, like what the issue is out there, right? There's housing shortage here. We know what we need housing. We don't know the how. And I think until we solve that, we're not going to know what we need money wise. So.
Okay.
I was just going to expand on Steve a little bit. I think just looking in the rearview mirror, whatever the public perception is has to be acknowledged, right? And some of the best successes of companies that come out of problem times are the public relations campaigns that revolve around that. I think sticking with the 1 mil and selling the fact that there was mistakes that have been made in the past. We've rectified those. We have a new ED coming in. We'll know who that is at that time. And selling the community that the mistakes have been rectified and that the housing authority is back on track and that there is value added in there.
If we just go with a 1 mil, I'm assuming that we'll look for STR funds for certain projects, but we're not relying on that. Is that correct?
One more time.
we go for the 1 mil, that makes up a lot of our operating expenses and everything. We won't use the 1 mil for the STR to supplement that because we won't need it. Is that correct?
Yeah, in round numbers, yes, or a very, very vastly reduced STRs.
So going for a mill eliminates one other problem about STR money coming from the city council, city on a daily basis, on a yearly basis. So that eliminates one of our decisions if we decide to do the mill. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Okay, so before we had two problems, kind of, we had this city, no offense, and we had the community, no offense. And now if we just do the mill, we can focus on one rather than both, even though we know in the future, we can go to the city for STR funds, but not on an annual basis or not continuous. So it kind of simplifies that. So I think that's a key point, 1 mil, or we combine 0.5 mil with STR.
All right, I'm gonna suggest that we move this to our next meeting to continue the discussion and to let the finance committee and what do we call it, the communications committee work together to answer some of these. But I think we're hearing loud and clear that there's obviously more than one way to skin this cat. So thank you very much. All right.
Hillside Village.
Hillside Village,
Mhm.
and this was
This is
at
gonna be,
Catherine's request.
yep, this is gonna be Emily and myself. Emily's online and we're just gonna kind of go back and forth, but Emily's gonna kick off the discussion here.
Hi, everyone. Just a quick sound check. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Emily.
Okay, great. Sarah, I'll ask you to advance the slides, please, since I'm not screen sharing.
I've got you.
Okay, thanks, Elliot. Yes, so today we're speaking with you about the Hillside Village Apartments rehabilitation, and a bit of context. This has been in the works for several years at the direction of the board in the strategic plans to maintain a good care of our existing assets. And so staff has been working along with the property management team and now with the development team to come up with a strategy to rehabilitate Hillside Village Apartments. And so today we did go in pretty good detail with the development team a couple of weeks ago, and the direction there was to try to keep this conversation somewhat big picture. So that's what we'll do, and just know, we're wanting to do a check-in to just make sure that we're on the right track, and know that we'll be coming back either at the development team or the full board with additional detail as this project develops. So a quick overview of the property. Hillside Village, it was developed in the late 1970s. Yampa Valley Housing Authority acquired it in 2007. It's 55 apartment units, a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms in 5 different buildings. It's managed by Kate and Kent. They're both full-time employees of specifically working on Hillside Village. And it's a really special community. Some people have lived there for quite a bit of time. It serves some of the lowest income community members in Steamboat Springs. It has accessible units, and it has some of the least expensive rents in town. And one feature of the property that's really important is that 36 of the units have USDA rental assistance, which basically means that no matter what the rent is, and the person who has the specific, we'll call it an RA unit, you'll hear us refer to that quite a bit, they're not paying more than 30% of their income, no matter what their income is. And so this property achieves some of the deepest affordability in town, and it's very important that we maintain that. 58% of the residents at Hillside are below 30% AMI, so just to give you a reference point. Elliot, do you want to take this one?
Yep. So there's a definite need for rehabilitation here at this property. It was built in 2 phases in the mid to late 70s. We have a lot of kind of components of the building, like the building envelope, windows, siding, fascia, are all kind of end of life, I would say, or at the end of their lifespan. I know that we also have 2 ADA units, but they're not current with kind of existing accessibility and ADA issue or ADA compliance. They check quite a few boxes, but there's still a few things that need to be addressed with this rehabilitation. And then, you know, as great of a job that Kent does keeping up with turnovers and people moving out of the units. You know, as Emily mentioned, a lot of these folks have lived there for many years, and it's quite extensive once they move out, like what exactly needs to happen to bring these units up to kind of current standards and refresh them and kind of make them, I would say, like presentable, if you will, and rentable for the next tenant that's coming in. And so, you know, the whole intent of this rehab is to refresh the interiors, refresh the exteriors, meet accessibility needs. There's a wildfire resiliency code that's going to come into play on this as well for some of the exteriors, and kind of bring the property up to current standards and allow it to be in a place where it can get through the next, you know, 30, 40 years of its lifespan. So kind of high level, that's what we're looking at with this renovation project.
Right. So the two goals, the way that we become successful in this project are, one, if we maintain affordability. So again, as I mentioned, this property is a USDA rural development property. 36 of those units have USDA rental assistance. So top line priority is maintaining that rental assistance and just general affordability. And then also, of course, bringing the property up to modern standards, doing just a wholesale rehabilitation in one go, to improve life safety, quality of life for residents, and to make sure that we have a well-performing asset for decades to come.
Yeah, here a little bit, I touched on this kind of previously, but again, the scope of this project is still a little bit up in the air. Our architect team and the general contractor that we've got as part of the team as well are currently working through that. We're essentially, the scope is really being defined by the budget we have on this project. And so the most pressing things, you know, by entering and starting to do this work is addressing accessibility. And so that's, I think, going to be kind of first and foremost. There's also some other requirements by CHAFA, and those are, you know, adding dishwashers to each of the units, also adding air conditioning. So those are some of the necessities, if you will, that we'll have to tackle as part of this project. But other things that we're looking at is really a refresh of cabinetry, plumbing fixtures, lighting fixtures, you know, new door package, new paint, new carpet, new flooring, and really just kind of bringing these units up to a standard that, you know, I would not a Cottonwood standard, but something very comparable to that. Also looking at addressing things like sound attenuation as part of this rehab. And we're trying to do it in a way that it doesn't trigger other improvements. For example, we're trying to do this so in a way that we don't have to add fire sprinklers to all the buildings, and add a fire alarm panel and water entry room and those kind of things. So it's a real balance. We'll have more kind of information for the board about what the scope of this looks like, probably in the coming month. But that should give you a little idea of kind of what we're looking at high level with the scope of this project. New playground equipment is one of the things that's kind of been highlighted, and some other kind of site improvements. So.
So the concept that staff has been working toward to make this rehabilitation possible is a 4% low-income housing tax credit and state housing tax credit deal. And so at a big picture, what this means is that the housing authority would transfer ownership of the property to a to be created limited liability, limited partnership. And then we would, if we successfully receive the tax credit allocation, we would have a tax credit investor who would be a limited partner in the project.
Hi,
And
this
the
is
housing.
Bob Schneider returning your call from our.
Hey, Bob.
Okay, I got him muted. Go ahead, Emily. Oh, now Emily's muted.
The joys of virtual meeting. Okay, so we would have, if we received a tax credit allocation, then we would have a tax credit investor. That investor would be a limited partner in the project, and the housing authority would be a general partner, would be the managing member of the limited liability, limited partnership, and the general partner in the development. And the purpose of this structure is one, to bring in tax credit equity. This would be the primary source for the project. And then also it helps with our top line goal of preserving affordability. So this is a tried and true structure, financial structure and ownership structure for rehabilitating older affordable housing. And we had pretty extensive conversation about this at the development team, just about YVHA's roles, the risk profile. But we would be the developer, as I mentioned, we'd be the sole member of the general partnership. We would be guaranteeing the construction loan, and we would continue to serve as the property manager. We discussed some alternative options, like bringing in a fee developer or bringing in a full GP. But right now we are on the pathway. This is the pathway that we are on. We're working toward a tax credit application, which Elliot had mentioned elsewhere in the meeting, is due on August 3rd. We've already submitted a grant to the Division of Housing to support this project. And that grant is contingent upon YVHA getting a tax credit award. So this is the path we're on. We've been doing some additional due diligence work that came out of the development team meeting, and then also working on filling up our bench, so to speak, our project team with some great experts to help support the YVHA team. So I'm not going to list all of them. I hope you had a chance to read it in the packet, but just to show that this is a complex project with a lot of moving pieces, and we have a really good team to help support it. So we wanted to highlight some of the considerations for residents. One is that we will have to temporarily relocate people as we're working on their units. We anticipate it'll be about a 6 to 8 week relocation time, but it's obviously something that's going to be a challenge for people, that disruption. And it is an additional project cost that we have built into the development budget. But we will be bringing on a relocation caseworker who will actually be up here during the period of construction doing hands-on case management for each resident to help make sure that process is as seamless as possible and minimize the inconvenience and disruption as much as possible. The way that we've structured this to make both the USDA program requirements and the tax credit requirements work is that we will be setting the qualifying income to live at Hillside Village at 60% AMI. It's currently at 80% AMI. So there are currently 3 households that are between 60 and 80%. They're currently compliant and eligible to live at Hillside Village, but after this project is complete, they would no longer be. So we would have to work with them to find to secure them permanent housing that's not at Hillside Village. We will have to increase rents going up to what we've currently modeled for a 1-bedroom, $1,089 a month, for a 2-bedroom, about $1,300 a month. That was set at 50% AMI level in 2025. With AMIs increasing, that would be affordable to someone at 45% AMI. The important thing to remember is the rental assistance for those 36 units remains. So with that rent increase, the actual amount that someone pays is still entirely customized based on their income. So those residents with rental assistance would not be affected by this, but the residents who do not have rental assistance would be. So that is just a consideration to keep in mind. However, we also have in the budget it's a tenant protection reserve, which is a 2-month or a 2-year period where YVHA essentially provides rental assistance to those other 19 units. So the people who are in units that do not have rental assistance will not experience a rent increase that's associated with this project for 2 years, potentially 3 years. We've modeled it for 3. We're required to do it by USDA for 2 years to help provide really significant advance notice for people about their rent increase and to help work with people as much as possible to prepare them for that. So for next steps, as I mentioned, staff is working really hard on this tax credit application. It is a significant lift. It's quite complex and requires a lot of work. So that's one of the main things that the team is working on this summer, racing toward that August 3rd deadline. So working on that, we will find out in November if we actually receive a tax credit allocation. If we don't, we will be coming back to the drawing board as to whether we try again in the next round or take a different approach to this project. But for now, that is the path we're on. We did talk about the sort of investment upfront that we have to make in this. YVHA does have a combined amount of $30,000 for pre-development expenses that we got from Enterprise Community Partners, who's also providing technical assistance to us on the USDA transfer component of this project. But we're doing a bit of design work, quite a bit of financial modeling, regular just sort of site due diligence and reports that we have to prepare for the tax credit application. Most of that work could be reused in the future if we don't get an award this round. So yeah, with that, I think we're ready to take any questions that you have. Oh, never mind. The impact. So as a reminder, the impact of this project is that we will be extending the usable life of Hillside Village apartments, which would lead to an improved quality of life for residents, increased energy efficiency, decreased ongoing maintenance costs for the housing authority. We would have the rental assistance for the 36 units maintained. The 19 units would have a 2 to 3 year period with no rent increase triggered by this project, and a new affordability covenant would be placed on the property for a minimum 30-year term. So like new units and continued affordability is the impact. So with that, we'll take questions.
Great. Thank you, Emily and Elliot. Catherine.
There's no way to jump in on this. So first, I want to thank Emily and Elliot because I've been talking to them about this project, and I want to thank the entire team. I mean, this is very important. Everyone in this room knows my passion is taking care of first and foremost of our important residents, and particularly our lower income residents. And Hillside Village is the only apartment neighborhood in the county that is guaranteed affordability for the most vulnerable of our community. I mean, the cost for us to build something that gives homes to people who make 45% of their income is extraordinary. And we have people at Hillside that make 16% of the income. So a couple of things, my suggestions, is friendly suggestions. First, I love this. I think updating it to health standards is critical. I know things like air conditioning sound like a luxury, but with our climate changing, it is becoming a health issue. I looked at the temperature for the next couple of weeks. We're going to hit 89 in June, Steamboat. Friendly suggestions on this is I would suggest that we try to look at a pro forma that looks at the rents, the rents, that 45%, and see how many people it would actually cost burden. I was chatting with Elliot. I do think we have people currently in those 18 units, and I see 18 units because 19 includes Kate, our manager. to see if there's a way we can lower that down to the 40% we're currently at now. And then the other suggestion I'd just like to make is Aspen Housing Authority, which has been doing this longer than we have and very successfully, has now recognized that in our high-cost mountain communities, when you're making very low income, even under 50%, that 30% metric is no longer applicable to be able to live in the high mountain communities. So Aspen Housing Authority, for instance, has set up their own rent charts. And like for a 50% AMI, they look at 25% of income rather than 30. Gorman, who we all know is working on an apartment building in Aspen. They're using the Aspen Housing Authority's charts instead of the AMIs. So I would like to please suggest that we look at a pro forma to see if we can, number one, ensure that we're not cost burdening people. That, we're saying that are currently at 40% and make 40% or less. And then number two, see if we can look at that 25% metric like Aspen Housing Authority is doing. Now, I recognize by doing this, we might have to look for additional subsidies. I recognize it has to pencil. But I do think, Prop 123 does have, I listened in on a committee hearing. They do have renovation funds. I know Steve's gonna get so tired of me saying SDR, but if we could actually deed restrict these puppies at lower than 50%, that would actually accommodate what your next Prop 123 numbers are for the city. And congratulations to the city and the Housing Authority for being one of the first communities to reach our Prop 123 numbers. So those are my suggestions. And I also recognize that the details the construction guys and development guys go through, we don't maybe all want or need to see. But one slide that I do think is missing is just the total cost of this renovation. I mean, I saw the $10 million tax credit. So is that 10 million to reconstruct it, or do we have to get more money? Like, this is what's going to cost, and this is where the money's going at a very high level. And I think you guys have to have that for the grant submittal, right?
Yeah, we do. When we brought this presentation to the development team a couple weeks ago, we got into some of those details, and it was an hour and 20-minute presentation. And so the direction from the development team was to bring this at a high level to the board, as you asked, to kind of inform the board of what we're working on, the direction this is heading, seeing if the board supports this, seeing if there's general support. We're talking about potentially putting about, maybe $50,000 to $75,000 at risk here with getting this application submitted to CHAFA. And so that was kind of the direction from the development team, and that reflects what you're seeing today. I think you're absolutely right that there's more details on this. The work that we're going through with our consultants and the pro forma work is kind of a work in progress, if you will. As I mentioned, we're still working on the scope. We're still working on construction estimates. So there's some things that can change between now and August. But I think that we absolutely would come back and provide some more of that information in detail. As of right now, we're kind of looking at about an $8 million renovation is kind of the bucket, if you will, that we're trying to work within on this.
My other two comments on it, and Scott, we're lucky to have Scott on board right now with your expertise on LIHTC, because it is so confusing. But whether we end up going to fee developer or ourselves, at the end of the day, we just need to be able to, when this term ends on the LIHTC, that we have 100% of the ownership reverts to Housing Authority at zero cost. So that's the other key thing, because like with reserves and stuff, there's a fee involved. And then the other thing I just want to also, I think my thoughts are, we want to make sure that all this money is going into Hillside, and the Housing Authority is not pulling any money out. That this is full investment in the development. So thanks for your hard work on this.
Shannon.
I know you mentioned that there's a caseworker that's coming on to help the residents relocate. When they do relocate, will their rents remain the same as they would if they were staying at Hillside?
Yes, that's built into kind of that package, if you will, of that consultant. And per USDA, we have to kind of provide a like for like unit. And so that's contemplated in that relocation cost.
Gotcha. Oh, thank you.
Other questions, John?
I'm not sure if this is pertinent, but back in around 2017, when I was on the board, we did a process of renovating each of the units. And we had as people left. And when we did renovate them, I guess we didn't include air conditioning and wash machines and things like that. Is there a way to keep these costs so that it's like a wash machine layout, for the whole community rather than having individual ones for each of the?
Yeah, currently there's two laundry stations in two of the buildings. And there's no washer or dryers in any of the units. We kind of initially looked at that as part of the scope, but it's just not feasible to do that. So we're gonna keep the laundry stations in at the property for tenants to utilize for washing.
So I agree with what you're doing, but I don't want to go too fancy to make it too expensive, but the basics are real important. And I'm not trying to deprive anybody from the wash machine or their air conditioning. I understand that. But be careful to keep the cost down so that we can still make it a livable place and still afford it. They can still afford it.
FDA is requiring the AC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was highlighted in one of the slides, what the new rents will be.
Right.
I think the other piece of that is retaining the rental assistance, and then the rental reserve is what we're doing to continue to make this affordable and attainable to people.
Mark?
Just a comment about Aspen. Their contribution's a little bit more than ours. Aspen's contributing 200 million to their affordable housing project, which is, Aspen's doing a good job, but they might be in a little different environment.
I'm not saying that Aspen has.
I know, I'm just noting that.
I know, but I will say that someone who makes, $35,000 in Aspen and 35,000 in Steamboat both have the same challenges.
I think the project's a great project, but as always, I'm worried about cost. And I'm struggling. I haven't looked at this to say 8 million is enough or not enough, but I'm guessing that it's not. And there's just items like, if you're saying you're thinking about a 6 to 8 week relocation, I'm guessing it's gonna really be more like 3 to 4 months. I believe you're gonna have to take an entire building out of remove the tenants so that you can do that building all at once. And then it's gonna be very difficult to do that building, move the tenants back in, and then move the other tenants out. So functionally, I think you're gonna have one whole building out, and then you're gonna have another whole building out for a little while. So these things you'll work through as ICOTA, at least ICOTA is doing this, so they'll have a detailed presentation to work off of. But we just have to be careful we need to be careful to not budget. We need to be careful not to design to a budget versus budgeting to a design. And what that means is we need to put into this remodel. I mean, this is extensive. And so you need to do it right. So you need to pick out everything that needs to be done. And everything you've talked about needs to be done. But I think that there might be a couple of other things that need to be done. And I think it assuredly needs a fire alarm system, even if they didn't say that they don't require it. I think we need to put it in from a life safety perspective. I think we should look at the cost of a sprinkler system, because you can't do a multifamily structure in this country new without it. And And this is, I mean, these are older buildings. Again, it's a life safety issue, but it's a cost issue. So, but I would be looking at considering the cost of it. And then in terms of relocation, it's a whole lot simpler to say, I'm gonna relocate. I'm gonna budget for a 4-month relocation and find out you can do 2 months. Than to say I'm budgeting for 2 months and find out you gotta do 4. And that's an example of which direction you're budgeting a project at. So as it moves forward, we can look at the cost, but when you're doing this much work, we need to do it correctly. So you shouldn't be doing, we just went through an experience where you have a developer starting taking things out early on to get his budget down. Don't do that. Include every ounce of work you can think of and budget it. And then if it's not working, then start taking it out. At least that's how I do it.
Good suggestion. So Mark, do you think does this include like this new siding? Is that like fire resistant and things like that?
Yes. I mean, as of right now, to Mark's comments, I think some of that will come along, later this year. What we have in our pro forma from like a construction number hasn't been shared with, the general contractor. So we're waiting to see what they come back with as far as like the scope that we're working on, what those numbers will be. But yes, it'll have hardy board siding, so non-combustible materials on the exterior of the building, and everything that kind of meets this wildfire resiliency code that's coming down the pipeline on July 1st.
And then the other point I wanted to make too is just going forward in the new pro forma, if we're going to have additional costs like compliance, we need to make sure that we can get the subsidies up front, that the rents can still be not cost constrained to the residents. But, because I'm guessing we're gonna have to find a new compliance person to do the light tax since we've never done it before. So things like that.
Yep.
And also just to hope however we structure it, because right now, it's got, I think the debt's down to like $1 million. We want to make sure we don't like cost burden the debt side either. So but also a good point, Mark, on your analysis.
If I just, and then Scott, one of the things we're looking at, and we have to look at carefully, is the risk profile on this project is actually pretty high. It's a complex job. It is a rehab job. It involves moving people around. Our execution risk is, I have all the faith in Emily doing this, but she's never done this before. I have all the faith in Elliot doing the construction management, but I think Elliot has a different job. So those are questions that we have to ask ourselves, and we want to get into it. That's why the alternative option was there, is to have a developer partner. Scott brought up the issue of whether or not we could actually qualify for a LIHTC deal. And that's a reasonable question. And what happens if we can't? So, Scott.
Yeah, so building on what Lou was saying about the risk profile, I think just to like put it out there so we all know what that means. This is the first project the Housing Authority is considering signing guarantees, right? Like this is a project that like is a make or break. This is either the project does really well or the Housing Authority doesn't exist anymore. Because when we're 20% over budget or 30% over budget, like it's all of that. I also want to mention how this relates to the mill levy to me. So now we're going to ask the community to give us money, or we're going to ask the city to give us money. And then we're going to have liquidity covenants with our lender for that money. And, we're all members of this community. That raises like I think that raises a pretty big concern about us going and getting a mill levy, honestly. Because if we're saying, hey, not only do we need this money, but hey, by the way, we're now putting all this money at risk. I don't know, like I think those play together. And that goes back to my point of how We need to figure out as a housing authority how we want to develop these projects. And look, this project's awesome. Like, Emily, great job with the presentation, all the work that you're doing on it. It's just something that we need to know. Because if we take that step right now and we say we're guaranteed, there's a light tech deal. So we are guaranteed the permanent debt. We're guaranteeing all that tax credit equity, right? So tax credit equity comes in, whether it's 10 million, 12 million, 50 million, 5 million. We are providing a 15-year guarantee on that tax credit equity that we don't default. And then construction loan, which is probably the biggest one, is if the project's 10% over budget and the city won't give us money, or we can't find a partner that's going to give us a grant, we're on the hook for that. So it's just a complex project. To us in the development committee, I think it made sense for us to go through the LIHTC process, apply. It's a very competitive process. The likelihood of receiving a tax credit award on your first application is very, very low. And so it's a good barometer to say, hey, what's their feedback going to be? But I think while we're going through this process, which is going to be a lot of work for Emily, it's just wise. I think we need to have a conversation as a board. And I think we need to say, do we guarantee projects or do we not guarantee projects? And we need that to be like, I think we need that as a board direction. Because I think that changes a lot of things for like how then Elliot and the staff approach projects. Like if we don't guarantee things, then they kind of know, okay, everything has to be some kind of partnership or something. But if we do guarantee things, then we're opening up that door to say, okay, we're willing to put that at risk.
Historically, we have not taken on risk. I mean, that's been a premise of the housing authority, is we do not take, because we can't. But well, Scott, do you think, I mean, with us not having the guaranteed, funding source, what you're saying is it's pretty unlikely that they would, because how are we going to guarantee it if we have no funding source?
Yeah, I mean, you don't develop and own projects if you don't guarantee.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, if you're awarding a tax credit and we have no guaranteed funding going forward, why would they? It seems unlikely they would do it.
Part of the conversation. So along that same line, two comments. One is in the write-up, the LIHTC application was listed as $50. That should be changed to $50,000. And it's still a good investment. Because it answers a lot of questions, and if we actually win, then and you have to pay it, you have to do it. So, and then along this, being a developer, I have a question that I'm not looking for an answer today, but I'm looking for an answer someday. Answer this question. If you're the developer and you're guaranteeing this loan, if we go into a recession, you get trapped and we go into a recession, and all of a sudden you lose 25% of your tenants quit paying. In our case, our income is partially from that. So 25% of your tenants quit paying on all your projects. And because it's a recession, you start losing income from other sources. How do you then complete the project or shut it down? And how do you then pay the debt on this project that you're the developer on? And how do you continue paying the debt on all the rest of the loans that you've got? So this sounds like a bit of a rhetorical question or a bit of a what if, and it is a what if question, but this is real. I have been here twice. So let me tell you, this is horrendously real. So seriously, it needs an answer. It doesn't need an answer today. Doesn't need an answer in a month, but it needs an answer so that you understand the risk that you're taking on.
Thank you, Mark.
Because I'll guarantee you it's expensive.
Mark, are you recommending a development partner then, going that route?
Yes.
So I'm wondering, is that a case, since there's a development team, then since you guys have looked at this in a deep dive, are you recommending that rather than applying just this housing authority, that we find a fee developer?
It is one of the options that we're talking about.
I think, for the sake of time, and I had these questions, maybe they were answered a little bit by the conversation happening, but my original question was gonna be, can I have more information on the alternative options, the fee developer and the general partner? Like, I think it'd be great to compare, like, this is if YVHA does it, this is if we have a fee developer, like, we need to compare, we need to understand the pros and cons of all of those options. I think this presentation was great, the overview of the project was great, but I think the big thing is, do we wanna be the organization taking on risk and guaranteeing? Historically, we haven't done that. My first guess, or not guess, instinct is no, we don't. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if I see those laid out, like, and we say, hey, this is the direction we're moving, then let's have that conversation. But I think we absolutely need to see each option side by side, decide what's best for the organization.
Yeah, I mean, those options came out of the development team meeting. That's why, we had this presentation. And the option was, we think we may need to really evaluate whether we have a development partner, what kind of development? For fee development partner, partnership, something. So we're not there yet.
August 3rd is like right around.
Maybe mention something about that, because like, to fairness to Elliot and Emily, and having gone through development cycles and blight tech applications, like, I think we need to probably provide direction of either they apply as right now as the owner, developer, guarantor, knowing that we're very unlikely to get tax credits, but we'll get good feedback. It's like, that's an option, or another option is go figure out an alternative structure. Because they are kind of two different paths. Just like my suggestion on that.
I mean, I think we need another option.
I guess
I think it's a lot of work. I think it's a lot of work for Emily and Elliot to do this. If the board direction is, yeah, we don't want to be the one guaranteeing this. Like, I think it's a lot of work for them to go down that path. When the end result might be, yeah, we don't want to take that risk.
I think that we own it right now. We have 100% of the risk. If something happened, whether it's an economic downturn or a fire or whatever, and that's the only reason I would say we're really, other than the construction risk, which, again, picking the right contractor, the right partner, doing nothing is another option. Continuing to renovate as people move out, but at some point, you're probably looking at a major renovation. So, I mean, the question is, do we do it now? We own it. We have the risk. That's the only reason I would consider saying, yes, let's at least consider and see if we get the allocation. And Scott, we've been, whether you want to call it lucky or we've been blessed with the light tech gods, we've gotten on first round 3 9%ers, which are just as competitive. So, I mean, we have a track record now.
It could happen. Let's just be prepared. If it happens, are we going to guarantee it? Because like,
And I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm worried about that. And actually, Kathy, with the night we had OPG, you had a huge track record.
That's what I was gonna say with the other light tech things. We had a development partner, we had OPG, we weren't on our own.
Yeah.
I also,
This is like hearing everybody talk about this. It's like, there's no way we're gonna take this risk. Given where we are today,
I don't think so.
to take a risk like this, you need another option. There's no other option.
I also think like the amount of time and effort it will take for our staff to do this without a development partner, when we have other things that we need to be focused on. And I think this project needs to happen. I don't think there is another option of do nothing. I don't think that's on the table either. I am not advocating for that. I want to see this building modernized and up to standards and these residents in safe and healthy living environments, 100%. But yeah, what Steve said, I think we need another option. I don't think, we're not gonna guarantee this. We're not in a position to take this risk. So I don't want us to receive it and then say, oh.
And I guess question, Scott, seems like my tech expert in the room. Ding. So if by some miracle, and I just can't imagine someone saying, oh, so you guys have no ED and no long-term funding source, here's $10 million. But if they did, and we decided, wait a second, this, at that time, if we got it, could we then at that point add a fee developer partner or something like that? Or what's that?
I don't know.
Okay,
Frankly, I've never heard of a project.
that went backwards.
I don't have experience with that, and I haven't heard of a project. Projects change,
Okay,
but the sponsors, meaning like the ownership and developers, as far as I know, kind of always stay the same.
and then I guess two questions I guess, is there, if we move, is it worth $50,000 to get the impact, to get the, you know, feedback? Is that worth 50 grand?
I don't know. There are a lot of lost costs in there.
Okay.
Lost costs. Like there's just like, there's certain things in there that just, you're gonna pay and you're gonna have to repay for every time you apply. So Emily is right. Like, let's say it costs 50,000, maybe 35,000 of it, 30,000 you recoup. But also if the whole project changes, maybe you don't recoup any of it. I don't know.
And I would surmise we'd have to RFP it or something. There wouldn't be time to actually look at a fee developer or development partner by August 3rd.
All right, we've been informed that there is a meeting in here at 2:30. And it sounds like this will be on the next agenda to continue the discussion. The development team obviously got some good feedback. The one item that we need to vet with the board is the Slate Creek neighborhood. So we will continue and put the Hilltop presentation on the next board meeting. And I will remind everybody that our next board meeting is in 3 weeks. It's was it July
2nd.
2nd. So we're only delaying the discussion 3 weeks. So Lou, do you wanna?
Yeah, I'll start.
Wait, before we like
Can
end the.
we just real quickly, I mean, what I'm hearing is we need to pause what we're doing. That's what I'm hearing from the board with Hillside and evaluate additional options, a fee developer, an investment partner, something along those lines, and come back to the board. That's what I'm hearing.
I wouldn't pause
Well, I mean,
the design and costing at all.
okay,
Proceed with that
okay,
hard,
okay,
because that drives all the rest of these decisions.
okay.
So that is not wasted time or money. That would be a huge benefit in getting the rest of this organized and done.
Okay.
And I think we need to cover, you know, the options and the discussions on ownership and, I mean, because one of our goals is to own this property.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
My question, are there any board members in this room who feel strongly that YVHA needs to be the developer and take on the risk and guarantee if the LIHTC stuff goes through? Like, does anyone feel strongly that that's the direction we need to direct staff?
Just I'll get one comment. If we were doing, like we did in the past, one unit at a time, but now we're doing one building at a time, that's a whole different application. We could take it on, do one unit at a time like we did in the past, and we could handle that. But this is bigger than that, so it's a real different animal.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and it's not, I mean, we're taking on the entire project.
Right.
But because of the fact that it's occupied, you're doing a building at a time. And then there's gonna be a crossover where you got 2 buildings going to make sense out of the construction cycle.
Yeah, but I guess just like to Elliot's question, for the sake of time, like, does anyone feel like YVHA needs to do this without a development partner?
This is, it's one of the questions we talked about at the development team meeting. While it would be nice, I don't think we're in a position to say we have all of the staff, all the capabilities that we need in order to execute this project flawlessly. I think the risk profile is very high.
Well, that raises the risk even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so I'll just also note, we have a development team meeting on June 23rd.
Right, 23rd.
So, you know, we can bring this back and have additional discussions and then look at bringing this back to the board at the July 2nd meeting for additional information and feedback.
Is it possible to do 2 or 3 units at a time rather than the whole building? Is that extensive?
I think we could probably have some of that conversation.
Oh, Emily?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and just say that I don't think that the board has the information in front of you all to make a decision on whether YVHA is self-performing this development or going an alternative option. And the direction that we got from the development team was to keep this presentation high level. I did initially have slides on risk profile and some of the things that this conversation veered into today. But there are some real trade-offs with finding another, bringing on a general partner. And so I think that everyone just needs to have the menu of options in front of them. But the thing that's difficult is to know whether or not we're proceeding with the tax credit application. And the work that we just need to kind of continue doing in the next 3 weeks between now and the next board meeting in July. The direction from the development team was yes, continue the path, but I don't know if that's what I heard today. So it'd be helpful to get just a kind of a yes or no.
Emily, I heard that we're not going to continue on that path and that we need to bring this back to the board. I mean, is that accurate?
Well, I think the question is, though, if there's a risk analysis that we haven't seen that might be answering some of our questions or concerns, now I'm torn, because if Emily's got a risk analysis that negates some of that risk, then I think we need to see that before we can make an educated decision.
A guarantee is a guarantee.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry, a guarantee is a guarantee.
Well,
If the board, I mean, and that's not to take down, she has risk analysis, but we don't. If we receive a tax credit award, we will be guaranteed.
I mean, just to answer the very specific question of should we proceed with the application, the risk there is $50,000 lost. That's all. To me, that's not a risk. It's an opportunity to gain information. But you know,
I think it is a risk when it's taxpayer dollars
no,
and the board is
agree.
leaning towards not guaranteeing it. I could be wrong.
You do not want to accept a tax credit award.
Like, that would look really bad on YVHA as an organization to go through the application to apply to get it and then to be like, just kidding, we don't want it. We just wanted to see if we would get it. Like,
Not receive another tax credit award.
we would never get another one. Exactly.
So there, I mean, yeah, I think at our development committee meeting, right, it's like, we don't want to speak for the whole board. We said, hey, look, it kind of makes sense to go forward. But if the whole board here says, hey, we don't want to guarantee anything, then we shouldn't apply for a tax credit. That if we win, we get.
and how much money are we guaranteeing again? 10 mil?
I mean, the construction loans, wasn't the construction loan 18 million?
8 million? Yeah.
No more.
No.
No. Go ahead, Elliot.
No, the whole project is 18 million. The tax credit piece is 10 or 12 million.
So the construction loan covers about 90% of that, because you have to float the equity.
So wait, yes, and that's why I'm confused again. So the whole project's 18 million and we're only getting 10 million from the tax credit. Where are we getting the other 8?
Doesn't really work like
That's
that.
what I go there. Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
What's the deadline for the application?
Was that it?
Until August 3rd to decide.
Not quite.
Well, no, we actually, we have work to do between now and
We gotta
then to
finish.
finalize the
So
application.
it was dead, drop dead date then.
I would say, yeah,
Next board meeting.
yeah.
Is that cool?
Yeah, we can bring back the risk profile. We can bring back some of the other information that we have on the project and discuss it at the development team meeting and bring that to the board.
Is there gonna be a preliminary budget?
Yeah, we're supposed to have a preliminary budget by the first part of July for my coda.
When's the development committee meeting?
23rd.
And the board meeting is July 2nd.
Yes.
July.
All right, we're.
Okay, I'm gonna go through this very
July second.
just so I had no. I'm gonna go to the questions. I've looked at the constraint analysis. I've been working with John Snyder and Public Works on the water side of this for quite a while. I'm comfortable with his 400 unit limitations based on hydraulic restrictions, treatment capacity. I've got some questions I'd like clarification on, but those numbers aren't out of the ball, so those are okay. What we need is direction as the SE squared representatives. Shannon, these are the ones I remember us talking about at our meeting. I don't know if I've missed any of them, but I think it's captured. Okay, so I won't talk to you about the constraints analysis. If you have any questions of what's in the package, don't hesitate to give me a call. I'm pretty familiar with most of them. Question one, should we focus on 250 units or 500 unit development for Lake Creek? There's only 400 units worth of water, so I'm gonna say a 250 unit.
You may end up with 250 units, but I think it is absolutely crucial that the focus is on a master plan. And then you can pick 250 units in some portion of that master plan.
Master plan.
But a master plan of the entire property. But I'm just telling you today, I'm a no vote. If you just say, I'm taking the adjacent property and we're doing 250 units. The adjacent property to Jeremy's project, and we're doing 250 units, this is an example. That you take that property because it's got utilities and et cetera to it. And you put 250 units on that and you ignore the rest of the project. Then I'm a no.
First, the 250 units just happens to coincide.
And it doesn't matter if it's 400 or 100, I'm just saying that it's.
Coincides with neighborhood
It's
needs,
that.
which is already planned.
One of the things we talked about at the last steering committee meeting was like that when you master plan it all and you're presenting this huge giant proposal, like this is what we're gonna do with all 400 or 500 acres to the community, that it's very big and overwhelming. And if you instead say, hey, we're gonna take this piece by piece and see what the community needs as the years evolve, that might be more like a better approach to community support, saying we know we want there to be commercial, we know we want there to be potentially a grocery store and parks and a mixed unit, and so we're gonna build it in phases, and as we build it in phases, we're going to make sure the infrastructure can sustain a bigger development, but we don't necessarily want to say this acre will be for this acre will be for this acre, because then you're planning something where what if in 5 years the needs change for the community? We want to be able to do it in pieces so we can be flexible. Would you be supportive with something like that?
And the flip side of that coin is that you do that and you start doing the pieces, and then all of a sudden the light turns on and says, here's how we're going to do the rest of the project. And you say, oh, I shouldn't have done what we've already done this way because it impacts the rest of it.
But that's
So I'm not, when I say master plan, I'm not trying to define, personally, I'm not trying to define where every lot goes or where every unit goes, but I am saying that you take 500 acres and you say, on this piece, it's market rate. On this piece over here, we're gonna have a brand new mobile home park. On this piece, it's probably condos. Here's single family, here's a park, here's a school, and on this area, it's commercial. And so you get the generic locations, and so it works. And based on that, you can put the roads through, you can design the infrastructure, and it'll make sense for all of it.
I don't disagree, Mark. I agree that there's been a lot of development planning on this site. Okay, there is a master plan. Whether or not it fits with how we're going to do this is one of the questions. So you're right.
Hold on a minute. I don't think that is right. Because we have to, there's something called proof of concept here. And we need to do something small, i.e. 250 units, and get the community to see that we can pull that off within a cost-effective and efficient manner, right? And at the same token, to your point, we can't prevent ourselves from expansion by putting in a water pipe this big and then realize we need a water pipe this big. So we have to take those things into account. But to put together Brown Ranch 2.0 of 2,200 units, a grocery store and everything else is going to send the community in a total panic.
I didn't say 2,200 units, it might be 200 units.
Yeah,
I'm saying.
Okay, but all I'm saying to you is that in addition to that, we need at the minimum 7 years to build a water treatment plant from today. If we decided today to spend the 50, 60, 80 million dollars, whatever it is to build a water treatment plant, we won't have it in place for 5 to 7 years minimum. So we're talking about beyond doing a small little pilot proof of concept, 50-acre annexation or whatever we want to call it, we're talking 2035, really. By the time we can do anything else.
Just for clarification.
So
Neighborhood A.
I know you don't like the water discussion, but.
We have 10 minutes before this next group.
My comments fast.
You have to hurry up and make a decision.
I just,
Here are my quick answers to your question up here is I think we need to do a pilot project. We have the housing needs assessment, the most recent one presented to the city shows we have a critical need for housing. I personally like nice friendly little 200 unit. I know it's not part of a master plan as ideal, but the city clearly told us they want to see a small specific development. And so I think we need to focus on trying to get 200 families homes as soon as we can. I think my understanding of what the water situation is we have those 400 units, but only after 3 projects are completed and providing nothing else is built. So I think if we're going to do a 200 unit, we need to have a guarantee from the city that that's not going to change, that we're not going to build these units and oops, all of a sudden something else is there, no water for you guys. And then going down the line, I think right now we have a lot of room for other stuff on commercial. I think if we're doing 2,000 units, yes, find some room for market rate. We're doing a little bitty 100, 200, 250. Let's try to make it pencil on the greatest need, which is which is affordable right now. And so on continuing to use the community builders and civic canopy, I think that you guys are working with them the most. That it seems the city's spending a lot of money on it. I would certainly hope the city and the housing authority could work together without a facilitator, but I'll wait for the team's recommendations. So that's my quick answers, Lou, to your slide.
Okay, thank you. I am comfortable that we can deal with the 250 units in a planned fashion that accommodates future growth. I'm very comfortable with that. Sense of the commercial, I think commercial has advantages for us as well as the city. And so that's something we want to talk about. It's a question of how much land does that eat? How much water does it take? Those are questions that we need to answer. The issue of market rate housing has come up several times. And what I would like from this board, and Shannon, correct me if I'm wrong, this was our conversation, was, what are we talking about in terms of market
Jump in.
rate housing?
Well, when you do market rate, okay, you have a generated need for employees and jobs and everything. So if you do market rate, you generate, let's just say we do market rate and we do 15% inclusionary zoning. Okay, you got 15% of the demand there, and that's our keep up. You got another 85% of catch up. So we're trying to catch up, and you keep on moving the goalpost forward by building more market rate. I don't say anymore.
I think we just want to define the term market rate, so like we're all understanding what it is that we're discussing, because market rate may mean something different to me than it does to you, or so I guess we just wanted to create like a general definition that we can all agree on moving forward to guide discussion, if that makes sense.
And well said.
Thanks.
I think a lot of successful mixed income communities rely on the market rate housing that have no restrictions to fund the affordable housing. And so I think you want to keep that in mind.
I don't think they fund them.
They do all over New England.
No, 100%. They don't fund
No, they
them.
don't fund them, but that's like a huge part.
They need to catch up.
It subsidizes it.
I agree with that's been used as a model traditionally. And one of the reasons that when the community, we were all working as a community to get the SDR rate passed, one of the reasons we passed it at the 9% was to counter that need. So obviously, if you need the market rates to pencil, but if we only have 400 EQR units that we can do, and we know that the need according to the cities is 1,000, every unit we take away and do market, we're not gonna have the need for affordable.
Would, one of the comments that we talked about was, how would we feel if there was, the definition of market rate would be as long as it's not a second home and it's for locals.
I think the key thing for me is that when you have taxpayer dollars or philanthropic dollars going into a development, and we have philanthropic for Brown Run or Slate Creek, whatever you call it, already going in, is if you don't have some mechanism to prevent huge appreciation, the first person who buys it, does quite well. They hold on to the home, they buy it at a subsidized price, and then they sell it for the highest they can for a great big profit, and you can never sell it again. So to me, it needs to be affordable today, 5 years, 50 years.
Okay. What I'm gonna do is look for a thumbs up, thumb down on that definition of for locals, no second homes. So if we can have a thumbs up or thumbs down.
Appreciation cap or something like that.
So what you're, one more time?
The definition of market rate homes. The market rate homes are not for second homes, and they are not for non-local
So that'd be a
workers.
workforce.
Are you saying you want to do, if we're building if our goal is 200 to 250 units, you want some of that to be market rate, this first project route?
That might be, yeah.
That's an option.
I'm not saying you need any market rate out of the 250. I'm just suggesting you could stand some market rate in the 500 acres someplace.
Yeah, I agree too.
I don't care about the 250 doesn't need any.
Why don't you just say you can consider market rate in the
Right.
250?
Fine.
It's not a guarantee that.
That is what I said. I thought I said.
So it's not, yeah.
And what I'm hearing moving forward to for our next meetings next week is that if it is a 250 unit project for our first phase, the preference is to only have affordable housing units and not market rate. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
And I just want to add one thing, and you talk about a guarantee from the city on the EQRs for this.
Yeah.
The guarantee comes from, let's get our act together and get moving quickly.
Yeah.
That's how we get the guarantees. That's it.
I'm just saying, it'd be hard to get a construction loan if you don't.
Committee.
That's it. We will talk about community builders and civic canopy. Obviously, the city had